Our second reading also comes from the book of Exodus. Listen now for the word. And God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your town. For the 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. When the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us, for we will die." Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. God has come to test you, so that fear of God will keep you from sinning." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So yes, today we continue our sermon series on God's covenant, inspired by our covenantal windows here in the sanctuary. Our focus this morning is on the Mosaic covenant, named this because it is the promise between God and the Israelite people made through their leader, Moses. The Mosaic covenant is depicted in the second window from the back here on the pulpit side. And there you will see Moses on the top of Mount Sinai receiving the Ten Commandments. There's also an eagle, because in the reading Blake shared with us, which leads up to the Ten Commandments, God reminds the people, "You've seen how I carried you on eagle's wings." This refers to the way God saved the people from the Pharaoh, leading them out of slavery in Egypt in the event called the Exodus. Why are we focusing on the covenants now? Yes, the windows are being renovated, but that's only part of it. Today, American Christians are engaged in polarizing debates about our faith. What does it mean to be a Christian nation? And is that supposed to be the goal? What does Christianity have to say about a world that has billionaires and a trillionaire? What does our faith say about borders, immigrants, women, people of various genders and sexualities? It is always the human temptation to approach these questions from the perspective of our own interests. But the covenants invite us to begin somewhere else, with God's promises. So let us now look at the Mosaic covenant. Now, if you were here last week, you see right away that this is a very different kind of covenant from the rainbow covenant spoken to Noah after the flood. Recall that the rainbow covenant was unconditional. It was a promise God made to all of creation that required nothing in return. But the Mosaic covenant is highly conditional. There's a big trade-off here. If the people obey God by fully keeping these commandments, then God says, out of all the nations You will be a treasured possession, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. So there's something enormous on the line here. The Israelites' status as a chosen people. If the Israelites are not obedient to God's law, their call to be a holy nation will be twisted and diminished. A second comparison, remember that the Rainbow Covenant was made with the whole world, every people of every nation and all the animals. But the Mosaic Covenant is very specific. It's made with one particular people, the Israelites. And a third comparison, at the Rainbow Covenant, God laid down his weapon, symbolically surrendering his bow into the sky, turning that symbol of war into a symbol of promised protection, the rainbow. But in the Mosaic Covenant, God seems ready and more than willing to inflict harsh consequences. I am a jealous God, he says, punishing children for the sin of the parents. In some ways, this feels like a totally different God. We've moved from an unconditional promise to a highly conditional one. It seems we've moved from the God of the whole world to the God of one people. Where is that God of compassion and mercy for all? Who is this God of rigid rules and harsh consequences? How do we hold both of these covenants together? If you grew up with siblings or have your own kids, you know that parents of multiple kids often have to make a distinction between equal treatment and fair treatment. In other words, parents might treat siblings unequally or differently in the name of serving a larger goal of fairness. Here's how this looked for me growing up. One way my older sister Annie and I were different is that I was always asking for things, and she never did. I always knew what I wanted, and she took decades to decide. I had my birthday list long before my birthday, my Christmas list long before December, and if you put me in a store and told me to pick out something special, like they did on some special occasions, we'd be ready to go in 10 minutes or less. A couple who babysat me back then told me they gave me a toy catalog once to keep me entertained, and I sat on their sofa pointing to every item saying, I need that, and I need that, and I need that. I knew what I wanted, but Annie did not. Now, what did this mean for us? Unfortunately, because I have wise parents, it meant I was told no a lot more than my sister. So when I first started asking for a puppy, guess what I got from my parents? A conditional covenant. If you read this super long reading list and keep your room clean and wait a minimum of 4 years, we will consider a puppy. And guess what happened when my sister woke up on a random morning one November and said she wanted a puppy? She got that puppy in December. Unbelievable. Totally unequal treatment. But you know what? It was fair. It was right. Our parents wanted the same thing for both of us, to see us grow into healthy, mature people. And for Annie, as for many oldest siblings, that would mean getting more in touch with her own heart and dreams. And apparently for me, it would mean learning responsibility and patience. In service to their equally deep love for both children, my parents treated us differently. Now, I think we're seeing something similar here. I think it's illuminating to see this Mosaic covenant through the same lens. Perhaps the God who delivers the Ten Commandments at the top of Mount Sinai is not at all different from the one who made the Rainbow Covenant, that unconditional promise of mercy for all creation. No, what if the Mosaic covenant is in service to the Rainbow Covenant. That is, God's special, different treatment of the Hebrew people is in service to God's love for the whole world and every nation. This would mean God doesn't have a chosen people because God loves that group more. God's chosen ones are treated differently only in the sense that they are specially charged and specially responsible for carrying out God's mission to make known God's love to the whole world. Different treatment of different people, but all in service of God's love for all. Now, throughout the biblical texts, we're told this very thing. In Genesis, when God promised Abraham that he would be the father of the Israelite nation, God says, "All peoples on earth will be blessed through you." The prophet Isaiah said so powerfully to the Hebrew people, "It is too small a thing to restore the tribes of Jacob and bring back those of Israel I have kept. I will also make you a light for the Gentiles, that my salvation may reach the ends of the earth." I believe the correct understanding of the Ten Commandments is as the special expectations and special consequences demanded of those who have agreed to be part of God's mission of loving the whole world. And that is us. As people who, like the Israelites saved from Egypt, have knowingly experienced God's life-saving grace, we have a special charge, special responsibilities. We face heavier consequences. But we and Christians everywhere often miss this about the Ten Commandments. We miss this when we put the commandments up in courthouses and in schools as if they're a blanket requirement for all people, rather than the particular expectations of those who've agreed to follow God in loving the world, as if this is a code to enforce on others rather than focus on living out ourselves. And we miss this mission when we turn God's commandments into a tool for personal piety, as if these rules are about showing our own holiness and righteousness rather than about blessing others. We miss this mission when we turn God's commandments into a tool for measuring, judging others, forgetting that first and foremost, these rules are for each of us to take into our own hearts and hold ourselves accountable. We also miss this mission when we treat God's commandments as old and dusty, outdated, and unnecessary. As Jesus so beautifully summarized, this is the sum of the Ten Commandments, the sum of the whole law. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. When we do that, we extend God's mercy, compassion, and salvation to the whole world, and I think that is the whole point. It is no simple thing to keep God's covenant. That's why the book of Leviticus has 613 more commandments. Those are all attempts to understand how to live out these 10 rules in real life. That's also why we needed God incarnate to come show us what it looks like to live out these rules in real life. It's not easy to keep God's commandment, but I do believe we grow in our understanding of how to do it when we know the law is intended to show us how to extend God's love to all, rather than something that makes us special or something to enforce on other people. Simply put, people who seek to keep this covenant must critically examine the ways we are tempted today, to look out for only our own people, our own nation, to see others as less than, to see God's laws as a burden we can place on others rather than a roadmap for blessing others. If any nation is indeed to be set apart to be a holy nation, it will be evident in the mercy, love, and justice that are sought for all people of all nations. It will be evident when we do not kill, when we do not worship money, when we love our neighbors as ourselves. As we consider the Ten Commandments, may this be our prayer, that every time we and future generations are blessed to gather under these beautiful windows, may the window depicting Moses inspire us to remember with hope our charge to keep the covenant and to ask with courage, what does it mean for us to walk in the light of this covenant today? By the power and grace of God, may it be so. Amen.